Hey everyone, welcome back to the Urbstead. I'm Ben, and today I wanted to take you guys around the garden to see where we are at right now to start this new growing season. Just recently I put all of our cold weather crop into the ground finally, as well as planted out loads of seed of things like lettuce greens, spinach greens, and peas. Let's go check it out. First, we can start right here. This is the new herb bed. This is actually a find that we picked up on the side of the road from our neighbor's house who was getting rid of a bookshelf, and they didn't want it anymore. So we thought, why not we just fill it with dirt? And there we had a ready-made raised bed. We're gonna fill this thing up with herbs packed. As you can see, it already has some things growing. We just planted some parsley. We have some chives coming up, and we also are gonna be putting some thyme, English thyme, and loads of basil into this raised bed. We would like it to be a herb bed not just for immediate use, but we want to have enough herbs that throughout the season we'll be able to pick and dry and eventually store for the entire year going forward. You'll also see behind that is the garden tower, and if you don't have one of these for yourself and you are someone who doesn't have a ton of space but would love to garden, I highly recommend this. There are tons of models out there. We personally love this green tower, or green stalk garden tower ourselves. There's 30 different slots, and as you can see, I have it just loaded up with spinach and kale, which, whether or not you've heard me say it before, that is my favorite thing to add to a breakfast. So going around here, we have the front bed, and just yesterday I was able to finish up putting out all of our cold weather crops. There's about 60 plants in total, including walking stick kale, red and green kale, winter Savoy cabbage, alliums like green onions, shallots, and leeks. And on top of that, we also put in seeds for buttercrunch lettuce, bok choy, more spinach, and loads of peas. The peas, again, are going to be in this area here so that they can benefit from this trellis. We put in a couple other plants like strawberry spinach, which is kind of a weird, funky, potentially vining breed that is not really spinach but can be eaten like spinach, but also has some little formations that look like berries. Anyways, that's an experiment. We'll see how it goes. But we feel pretty good about how planted out this side is here. We have our sacrificial Chinese cabbage here on the end, which if you remember from last year, those things got decimated by bugs, but not many of those bugs made it much farther into the garden. As they grow, we will also put out some marigold into and intermixed into all these plants. But the strategy that we had here was that we found that alliums were a very good companion plant to brassicas. And I've heard for multiple reasons, including the fact that alliums are stinky. I mean, onions and garlic, stuff like that smells, and pests that don't like those smells also love brassicas. So we're hoping to use some of that to kind of combat the different pests that will attack the brassicas. Anyways, long story short, companion planting, look it up if you don't know it yet. It is going to be hugely beneficial, I believe, to increasing the productivity of our garden. Now right here, you'll see that it's kind of hard to see, but there is a row here, and this is the strawberry row. It is also currently full of garlic. As you can see, these little garlic sprigs are just shooting out. We're happy to know that this garlic's growing well, and we're very excited to see just how many bulbs we can get out of the garden this year. The strawberry itself is growing. It's coming back nice and vigorously, and also our 5 asparagus crowns are all still present and accounted for, and even one of them is starting to put something that looks like asparagus out. I want to show you this. It is right down here, and here's one right here. This is a fresh looking, it's white still, which happens when it's covered by dirt. That green color that you see on asparagus only comes as a result of being in the sun because of the formation of chlorophyll. So we're really excited. I'm really excited. That's new asparagus, and this crown itself is actually a crown that is ready and old enough to be harvested maybe 1 or 2 sprigs here this spring. The other crowns are still too immature to be harvested at all, but I'm looking forward to getting that first bite of homegrown asparagus. Moving on, we have our berry row here. We have blackberries. This is a white mulberry tree. We don't know what's going to happen to that one. That one here is called a red currant, and then we have a golden raspberry and then a red raspberry. Now these raspberries are the thornless variants, which is what we wanted for the kids. We also know that this blackberry is thornless. And the currants, I don't even believe, have a thorned version, but our intention is to find thornless of anything that we can berry-wise. And the exciting news is that on all of these berry bushes, we have life. Little buds are peeping out, slowly but surely, coming back to life. Oh. Something that I want to tack on here at the end of the front bed tour is a shot of these awesome plants that are just crawling their way out of the ground. If you'll see here, along the entire front of the front yard bed, we have comfrey planted. Now we've planted this also in a couple other locations, and this is the form of comfrey that is not hyper-invasive, but it will be a very strong weed barrier, and we will also use it as green fertilizer later in the season. Now, I want to take you on to the other side of the house, but before we get there, I want to show you one last thing, and that is the garlic bed. This is a tried and true raised bed for us, and we are very excited to see what we can get out of here. If everything grows well, and if all the garlic that I'm seeing grows fully and completely, we'll have around 50 heads of garlic. That's a lot. That's a lot in my mind, which I'm really excited about. All right, so did I turn off the oven? I just finished my wife's croissants for her because she had to step out of the house and I forgot to turn the oven off. But look at them bad boys. Yeah, I can't take any credit for that. I did put them in the oven, but that's it. So, brief intermission for baked goods. Always time for those. And now we're back. So, I'm going to take you over here, and I want you guys to see where we're at right now. So, how we have it now, we have these 6 beds finished and topped, and they are ready to be planted into. What we also have is we have these 12 bags back here, 4 small bags and 2 large bags over here. Those bags need to be topped off first with leaf compost, and then they will be ready for plants to go into them. This area here, which in the past you've seen a couple different attempts, none of which have really succeeded well. So this year, we are going to try planting beans in this area. And we're going to try it in a little unique way. Climbing beans, we're going to try and make a feature that is both attractive and fun for the kids in the neighborhood, as well as very useful and productive for the garden. Coming across here, I want to point out here that we were gifted 2 mature blueberry bushes from my grandmother, and we are very excited to say that we planted them in the fall. Both of them took, both of them show signs of life, and this year we might get loads of blueberries. Now I say loads, you have to understand the perspective is we have only ever gotten 4, 5 blueberries from all 10 of our plants. So this year I'm expecting at least a handful, which if we got a handful, then I'm over the moon already. So that is the newest addition to this side of the garden, these two blueberry bushes. Now we can look over here to our fruit trees and see if they made it through the winter, and they did. We can see here that this nectarine tree is really close to putting out flowers, and I don't know about you, but there's not much better than a nectarine flower or a peach flower. These things are beautiful, just on that bare wood. Woo! All right, I'm getting too into it, but I mean, I just can't help myself. Look at this. This is gorgeous. All right, so a couple of the trees, this cherry tree did not fare super well. It's got some bite marks from bigger creatures, probably deer, who actually live between those woods back there and these woods right here. So they come by and they nibble and they attack our trees for a snack. So this cherry tree is struggling, but it is still putting out life, thankfully. This apple tree is also putting out new growth, which we feel good about. Unfortunately, as you guys know, we did lose one apple tree to some sort of incident. And then finally, the last cherry tree up here, this guy is looking sad, and we might have to top him and take some of those branches off. But the good news is there is some life. And in this tree area, we laid down a whole bunch of white clover seed as a local ground cover that also happens to be nitrogen fixating. We also intermixed some local mixes of wildflowers. So we'll see what kind of comes up out of the ground here. Oh no! I just witnessed we lost a blueberry bush. There's still a little bit of growth left, but this whole thing got pulled off. That is heartbreaking. Okay, well, glad you were here to witness that with me for the first time. That stinks. Okay, but we keep rolling. We got 10 plants for a reason, because casualties happen. They happen all the time. Doesn't make the casualties easier, ever, but I can't stop, so I'm not gonna. I can't let small casualties put the brakes on my effort for the rest of the garden. I'm pretty proud of this. I think it looks gorgeous. And the potato patch is going to be where, you guessed it, we put our potatoes. We will also be trying a couple companions that we have heard help produce more potatoes. One of them is amaranth. So I'm going to be sowing some amaranth seed into that patch right alongside those potatoes to see what we can do that might increase production of those potatoes and maybe use a little bit more old school techniques. As it is now, the garden plan is not fully done yet, but we do know that we are going to be using these individual beds for different sets of companion plants. We want to try and incentivize integration this year rather than segregation. We do know for sure that these two bags are going to be, the big bags, are going to be peanuts. We've never tried it before. We're not even sure how it's going to work for us, but we're excited to give it a shot. We also know that these bags, they really worked well for sweet potatoes last year, but this year I think we're going to give them a different try, a different technique. We might try sweet potatoes in a bed like this, for instance. While we're on this side, I want to give you a quick update of the bees. I know that a lot of you like our bees, as exampled by how many times people respond when we put out bee videos. Now, I'm really looking forward to sending you more bee content in the future. But for now, I will leave you with the fact that our bees are happy and healthy, and they are doing their thing day in and day out. I do believe that this styrofoam on the outside, this insulation that we added, was a key part in them surviving as long as they have and as well as they have. Depending on where you live, obviously this winter affected you differently, but this year for us, it was warm, 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 way below freezing, like way below zero. And that is the kind of weather that will instantly take out hives. Now, since then, it has basically been balmy and nice, as you have seen, many of our videos have come out over this winter. But all it takes is one cold snap that the bees aren't prepared for, and the whole hive's dead. So we thought, might as well be safe rather than sorry. Let's insulate the hive. And even as you can see now, we have already put the honey super on and the bee feeder on. We soon hope to start feeding the bees so that they can have enough sugar and energy to build up the comb in the honey super. After that point, we'll remove the feeder and hopefully get them started on their way to producing honey as early as possible this year. We would love to get a big harvest of honey, finally, from our beehive. So, all in all, our garden everything is kind of flat and still and quiet. We have made use of most of the dirt that we have sitting here, and the rest of this dirt is going to go into those new raised beds that we're planning to get. And being that everything is still and quiet, this is kind of the point. Where we are at now is sort of the quiet before the storm. And we're really excited. What we wanted to do is we wanted to get everything really nice and prepared so that when it comes time to plant out, when we are confident that those nightly freezes have finally stopped, we would love to be able to jump on getting those plants in the ground as soon as possible. Over on the edge here, if you've seen some of our shorts, you'll know that we are attempting the same thing here that we did in the front row, as well as over here. But on this side, we're going to kill off grass so that we can make a wildflower pollinator garden. We would love to be able to encourage more pollinators, not just our own bees, but even other local pollinators to come and utilize the facilities, if you will. Have a snack, come over here, maybe pollinate some of our food, and overall help to improve the local environment here right at the Urbstead. As you can tell, we had a windstorm recently, and the windstorm beat our attempts. I'll have to go through here and reset this plastic, but that's an easy deal, and nothing more than a couple minutes of work, and we'll get this thing back on its way to killing off the grass. You can already tell the difference between the edge that is just eking out, or just on the outside of the plastic, and the parts that are inside the plastic. Everything on the inside is nice and yellow and dying off, and that's kind of what you want to see. We're excited and eager to see a nice, beautiful row of gardens and clover and trees and fruit and something that looks like Eden. I don't know. So, all in all, that's where we're at this spring. It's just around the corner, the moment we've all been waiting for, the time that we get to put plants in. We're excited to see what comes of it this year. And you can see my dog here. So all in all, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot that still needs to be done. This carport is still a mess because there's multiple projects hanging on, and I think that's just going to be a constant status for us, which I'm okay with. But I do need to make sure everything is orderly enough. So more cardboard needs to go down, more mulch needs to cover the rest of this grass. We're running out of mulch, so we'll soon need to be on the hunt for more mulch. Hopefully, I can find an arborist that's working on the street or somewhere nearby that is interested in getting rid of their load for free. Yeah. What else? We're almost out of our leaf compost, which we are close to being done needing it, but we still have quite a few things that need topped off. In the year ahead, our plans include putting on some water catchment on the other side of the house, putting a gutter on the back of the house to feed that water catchment. Another fun project that we're going to try and think about and potentially come up with is a sort of fertilizer tea containment system. All right, so the tour is over. Thank you for coming by the Urbstead. I'm ending out here in the greenhouse where we're hopefully going to move our seed starting setup once the nights become a touch warmer. We're also going to be starting in here loads of cucumbers. And this year, there's not going to be any rats that cut our joy from our heart and plummet it into the depths of disappointment. I'm not bitter. So I want to end on this note. Over the past few minutes, you have seen our garden as it is prepared for the new growing season. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, that's a lot of different garden space and a lot of time that's going to be required of us to do that. And you're right, it is. But what I want to challenge you is I want to challenge you to create your own first garden experience. This will be number 4 for us in terms of how many years we have been here at this place. It's also kind of the 4th or 5th year we've actually gardened. We're not experts by any means, and we're not really experienced in the fact that we don't have a decade of growing experience, especially not successful growing experience. So what I want you to take away from today's video is that you can choose one thing. You can choose even just one plant. And you don't have to be so nervous of failure that you won't even start in the beginning. So take a chance this year, and instead of buying one more thing from the grocery, attempt to grow it yourself. Or heck, if you go to a farmer's market, instead of throwing away that food waste, maybe the seeds inside of a pepper plant or a tomato plant, why not try growing that? And if you're struggling with the idea of not being able to grow anything, or not having a green thumb, or any of those other phrases that we throw around a lot, maybe just tell that voice to take a hike. Or, shut up. Because I think you can do it. We're doing it. Slowly but surely. But it's not been beautiful. It's not been, the easiest. You don't have to do something as big as we're doing, but maybe you have a windowsill, and maybe you have 15 seconds a day that you can fill that windowsill pot with water as something's growing. So do that. Try it out. Take some tips from newbies like us, and build that garden adventure that you have always wanted to build without, letting yourself succumb to the fear of what if I fail? Because you're gonna. But have you really failed if you've actually learned how to do something? Even if you've learned by not succeeding and not growing it right, you've still learned something. I mean, the old Thomas Edison story, but the worst case scenario here is that the seed you put in the ground doesn't even come up, right? And if that's the case, then you've wasted maybe a week, right? Maybe 2 weeks. Maybe don't start with lavender, because that could take up to 40 days. But if you start with tomatoes, you'll know within 7 to 10 days whether or not your seed's going to come up. Long story short, let this spring be the first spring of your gardening journey. Let it be the time when you finally decide, I'm going to prepare that ground, and you know what? I'm going to plant into it. So, I've been Ben. This is the Urbstead. As always, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Comment down below if you have started or decided to start your first gardening journey this year. And as always, grow on. See you guys.